Areen, how's it going?
Hello.
Wow, look how professional you look. You got a proper background and everything.
I did. Yeah, I do. I have a background. Otherwise, you see the guest bedroom.
Okay. So, for our listeners, for some context, we first met in August, I believe, last year at the Stanford International Institute's program as part of that. And you took a workshop with our boys on entrepreneurial thinking, like an introductory workshop. And the boys found that really, really exciting, and they reported that back to us. They loved it, so thank you for starters. And
I'm glad to do that.
oh, it was great. It was great, and we loved it too.
I actually took notes, so there's my notes from your course. I've still got them.
And so, yeah, I guess so. For some context for our podcast listeners, could you give us a bit of a, perhaps introduce to us how you came to be with that program, and then perhaps also then tell us a little bit about your educational journey and some of the key moments along that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, it was by coincidence. I teach at Harvard. I teach at Harvard mostly, and then I moved to California 2 years ago, and I started teaching at Stanford Continuing Studies. I went to the HR department, and I met with a person there, and we were talking. She was like, "Oh, I think you should teach at the programs here in international studies." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And she was like, "I'm going to connect you," and that's what happened. And then I was offered to teach there, and I said, "Yeah, why not? I would love to meet high school students from all over and see, what is it that they think about and how do they perceive entrepreneurship." And I do believe in entrepreneurship being taught to every single person in this world. And I do believe it will make our world a better place. So that's why I was super excited. And I enjoyed meeting your guys. They were awesome.
Well, they were very lucky. They were very lucky to have you as an instructor.
Thank you.
And so do you still kind of moonlight between teaching at Harvard and Stanford now, or what are you teaching at the moment?
Yeah, so I actually mostly teach at Harvard. So I teach at Harvard Extension School, and I teach graduate courses, mostly strategy and marketing. I taught before communication, and I teach at the Harvard Professional Development Programs, multiple topics. I teach strategy, entrepreneurship. We're working on a new program on women in leadership. And I teach part of a program, it's called Essential Management Skills for Emerging Leaders. And I teach the marketing session of that program. So a lot of things, but yeah, so that's mainly. And then at Stanford Continuing Studies, I teach the entrepreneurship program. It's mostly about how to develop entrepreneurial mindset and skills. And then I also teach sometimes with Babson Executive Education. And that is mostly entrepreneurship. And I've been actually in San Francisco, and I've been in Qatar, in Bahrain with them, and twice in San Francisco. So that has been amazing. I also have my own business, and it's called Cactus. And basically with Cactus, I teach women from the Middle East and North Africa how to start businesses. So a lot of entrepreneurship and business courses. That's what I do. And of course, I bring in the communication part and how to communicate, how to pitch.
So are you teaching remotely for the Harvard side of things and teaching in person at Stanford?
So with Harvard, I have been teaching in a hybrid format for the graduate courses. So, okay, take a step back. I was living in Boston before moving to California. So I was actually teaching all my courses were taught on site at Harvard. But then when I moved to California, I started teaching in a hybrid format, which means most of the class is taught online. And then I teach an intensive weekend in Boston on site. The Harvard Professional Development Programs are all on site. So I've been traveling about maybe, I don't know, between 5 and 8 times to Boston. But of course now, because of the pandemic, everything moved online. So that's, I love to see students in person, but unfortunately, until the end of the year, I'll be teaching mostly online.
But you're well prepared for teaching online, no doubt. You'd already started before all that.
Exactly. So I didn't, like when they said at Harvard, they're moving everything online, I imagined that the professor have been teaching for years and never taught online how it's stressful to just move it like this. For me, it wasn't that bad because I've taught online for quite a bit.
Yeah.
So
can we talk about Cactus International
yeah,
just first off? I know I was watching your intro video on that and talking about your main goal being, that broad, making the world a better place. Can you explain how your company is doing that?
Absolutely. So in the Middle East and North Africa, women are more educated than men. So if you look at universities, you'd see that the percentage of women versus men, it's about 60-40%. At the same time, more than 70% of women in the Middle East and North Africa regions do not actually participate in the workforce. And that basically just a shame. It means that you're not really using the human capital that you have invested in. I also research, of course, the options of women working in companies and what that means. But in most of the Middle East and North Africa, most of the jobs are governmental jobs. So it's basically not realistic to ask the government to create jobs for everyone. So that's where you need entrepreneurship to come into place. Also, the fact that, when women working for companies, they don't get the same salary, and that is happening all across the world, right? There are only a few countries where they actually make sure that women and men are getting the same salary. In the US, even, you don't get that. Women get less than men. And there are lots of problems with working for companies and not getting promotion as a woman, all these issues that happen across the whole world. So for me, I said, okay, so it's a problem. I did my MBA in Boston. I concentrated in entrepreneurship, and I said, I'm going to solve it. And let's see how I'm going to solve it. And I said, I'm going to solve it by teaching women how to start businesses. Then they are the ones who are creating jobs for other women. So it's kind of, you create a job for yourself, but also you create an engine for other women to join your company, and that would solve the issue. And at the same time, I'm doing it because my vision is for women to co-lead this world with men who are responsible, who would want to build that not only economical prosperity, but also creating a place where it's inclusive, where it's happy for everyone. And I believe it's going to happen only if women start being on board with. Can
you give us some examples of what some of those businesses are?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, one of the women that took my, I gave her a consultation mostly, and she built a business around the concept of marital relationships. And in the Middle East and North Africa, like many other places, the divorce rate is increasing. So she is solving this problem. Other one is, for example, created an online platform to sell Arabic books or books in Arabic. But the way she's doing it is she's coming from she has a psychological background, and she gives tips and advice on books that could help on a psychological level. Or she gives tips to parents, on what kind of books would help their kids based on, what is appropriate or can be beneficial to the kids. There are plenty of businesses. Some businesses, for example, they sell embroidery, Palestinian embroidery, and they work with lots of women who create those embroidery, and they sell them in the region, but also abroad using Etsy and other platforms. So there are a range of different businesses that the women really create. I mean, the amazing thing about what I've done, the main course at Cactus is the business plan course. So women learn how to create a business plan for their idea, and then at the same time create the pitch deck. And 70% of the women who take the course, they actually succeed in creating a business or in growing their business. And that's such a high success rate that does not exist elsewhere. So that's something that I'm pretty proud of.
Can I ask, what has been the effect of COVID? Have you been? I'm assuming you've been in contact with many of the women that you have consulted and taught over the years. In this context of COVID, what are the impacts there for them now? What are you hearing from those women?
So it's interesting because for some of them, so I gave the example of the woman who owns an e-commerce selling books in Arabic, and actually her business flourished during COVID-19 because people were home and they wanted to do something in their free time. And so her sales went up. So she wasn't impacted negatively. The one that has the company that is trying to help couples have better relationships. What she found out is actually that her business flourished during this time because men and women were forced to actually stay together and spend the whole day, and the whole family as well. So for her, it was actually a good thing during the pandemic that she got more people. I think, I asked her that question, and one of the things that she said, that she thinks that people started being more aware of the importance of improving their relationship during the pandemic. And so that is a good thing for her. Others, of course, it depends on the business. So others who are selling things that are not important to people at this time. So for example, fashion, those businesses has been struggling a lot because the priorities of the consumers now are not around fashion. They're more around entertainment, more around issues that they, marital issues that they're facing, or psychological issues, mental issues, etc. And they're less, or food, but they're less about fashion or clothing or jewelry, etc. So those other businesses have been struggling. I actually created a course for them that specifically talks about how they can deal with the pandemic, and what they should be doing with the business. And it's basically assessing if the need for their products and services will stay the same after the pandemic or not. And if not, how can they pivot during or after the pandemic, and how to think long term about their businesses.
So how does it compare to America for female entrepreneurs? What are the inhibitors in the US, and what's the difference between that and, I guess, North Africa?
So differences, it's interesting in the US, because if you think about who are the women who start businesses, you will see that the majority, or the growth rate, is the highest amongst African-American women and women from Latin America in the US. And that's because they can't find the same job opportunities as, for example, white Americans. And if you look at what are the disadvantages that women of color face in the US, many of them is, they are somehow similar. There are some differences, but I would say many of the things are similar. So for example, access to funding. They don't have as much access to funding as others, or getting loans from the banks. That is an issue in the US. Networking has been an issue too. Networking has been proven to improve women's ability to succeed in businesses. However, if they are so busy raising the kids and taking care of the business, they don't actually have time to network with others. And that has been limiting their ability to succeed. In the Middle East and North Africa, from my perspective, funding is an issue, of course, for any woman who's leading a business that is growing, but also the women that I worked with, the confidence part was a problem. Meaning, how do I start? Am I going to be successful? It's too risky. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I'm not qualified enough. Maybe I should take those courses, or maybe I should go and do a master's degree to be able to give consultation or help or guidance in specific topic. And I've been working with those women on kind of just jump in the water, do it. Let people tell you that you're not good enough. Don't tell yourself that you're not good enough before jumping. So I've been working a lot on that psychological aspect of, just jump, do it, see what happens, but don't just delay things, because while you're delaying entering the market, someone else could enter the market and actually, saturated with competition, so while you're just looking for the right moment.
That's the connection between psychology and business that you talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my bachelor degree is in psychology and communication. And I use psychology in everything that I do. I mean, I'm thankful for the degree. I don't think I will ever be a therapist. That's a lot. But I think that it has been very helping in my teaching and talking to people and consulting, understanding that the psychological barriers that people have, and how it impacts their success. And it's with men and women. There are differences, of course.
Well, I think it's potentially your success as well, as you've got the background in psychology. You've got background in TV presenting and communication. You speak multiple languages. I know talking to you previously, you may be a little bit modest about how much of an interdisciplinarian you are, but that to us sounds like all those things have combined to create your success. So, and I know one of the things we talk about, that the most beneficial point of contact isn't necessarily within a discipline, but it's making connections between disciplines and crossing those boundary lines. Do you teach any of those? Do you combine people from different disciplines? Do you teach in any way that relates to multiple disciplines?
Absolutely. I mean, in my courses, I communication 100%. So for example, I teach strategy course, graduate course, and I teach a marketing course. And in both courses, I have a whole list of, when you're presenting, what you have to be doing. So I don't focus only on strategy, for example, or in marketing. I talk about how they should sound convincing, how to be persuasive, even slide design, and the tone of their. So I give a lot of comments on the how they are presenting, the delivery part, because I say that that's a huge part of your success. People who communicate better, they get better opportunities at work, they get promoted, they are perceived as leaders. And those who don't, they don't. It doesn't matter how well you know about marketing or how good you are in strategy, for example. So absolutely, I do talk about psychology, for example. So we do. In the end of the semester, I asked them to kind of vote for companies. So basically, I divide the class into teams, and then they have to choose a company, whatever company they are interested in. It can be a company that works in the fashion industry or pharma or whatever it is. And then they have to create a strategy plan for that company. And in the end of the semester, they present, the strategy of the company, and then I make the class act as if they're investors, and they have to invest in certain companies based on their confidence in how successful the plan or the suggestions are. And then when they do that, we talk about, how much of your decision was objective versus subjective, how much of it was emotional actually. So that's when we get, the kind of psychological part and emotional part of human beings, and how in business, it's so important for us to be objective and to use analytical tools to be able to make the right decisions that would benefit the company and not be biased when we're making decisions. So absolutely, I do. I think the way I think about it is I say to myself, I'm going to teach this course about what is it that I care about? What do I want my students to get out of this course knowing? So critical thinking, how to present, how to communicate clearly, how to be objective, not to be biased, etc. And I create the course based on those objectives that I have, which of course they require me to take out things of the different topics or subjects that I do teach.
So I guess those analytical tools that you ask your students to employ when they're making these decisions, they're probably interdisciplinary in nature, aren't they? I mean, they have to draw on their understanding of economics and business strategy. And is that right? I mean, that's just by their very nature. They if they're going to make good investment decisions or good choices as an entrepreneur, they have to be able to weigh all that up.
Absolutely. So strategy, for example, it requires finance, it requires good skills in writing, it requires, good analytical skills and critical thinking. It requires marketing, for example, requires some skills in accounting. So absolutely, they have to draw on their experience from other classes, and they have to use it in my class to be able to be successful. Strategy usually is one of the hardest and toughest courses, and marketing as well, because they require students to know other topics before they are able to come to the class and be successful in it.
And so, Areen, what's the most fun and engaged? Your students that you teach, when do you see them at their most engaged? And so, if we were to sort of transfer some of the stuff that you do in your courses into our courses, what kind of conditions do you create where you see your students most engaged?
Well, so I must say that they are more engaged when I teach on site than when it's online. Unfortunately, I hope, with technology, we create ways that students feel exactly like they feel when they're on site. But I think, when they work on a project, for example, and they work with other students and they create that sense of community, that is something that makes students feel passionate, about, and they feel enthusiastic. When I make it challenging for them, which is, a big, that is my kind of, challenge, to make it challenging enough, but not too much, not overwhelming. So that's kind of where I always keep thinking about, how do I make the class challenging, but not overwhelming anyway. And it's getting harder and harder, especially during this pandemic and the emotional feelings that students have, and the uncertainty that is happening now. And it's gonna keep happening with the consequences of this pandemic. So that's, but overall, I believe that when I create assignment that is challenging, that requires them to think out of the box, that's when I feel they are the most engaged. When I do the on-site teaching many times, and that's my just energy, and I think I also take from my TV hosting, right? Because when I was filming, so many things go wrong, and I I have to think on the spot, and I have to come up with questions and save the situation no matter what, because the camera is rolling. And that has helped me in my teaching, because especially when I do it on site, and I think students do appreciate it, that when I see a student, for example, saying something and then someone else saying something different, and I see the class kind of in the middle between the two points of view, then I'm on the spot. I'm like, okay, let's do a debate. And so students stand up and they start doing debate. And I think that's when students feel, I can see that they feel the most engaged when things happen based on, what's coming from them and what interests them, and less about, my kind of, I have to go over all these things. And in my teaching, many times I prepare slides and I don't show them at all, because the class is just moving into a different direction, and I go with them based on their interests and not,
So how does your planning work in those circumstances? Because on one side of it, you need to plan for your lessons and the courses, and then you allow for change in the middle of it. Do you find it difficult to plan when you don't know what's coming up?
I think what I learned most, that I'm at my best when I don't plan too much. There's some certain amount of planning. If I plan too much and I spend too much time in planning, then there's the sunk cost, right? There's kind of, I planned so much, I worked so hard on this, so I want to go through it. And that doesn't really benefit students. So that's kind of, I don't want to, I invested so much time, so I want to make sure that I'm going through everything that I prepared. So what I'm learning, and it's hard because it's psychological, what I'm learning is I have to trust myself. I have to plan basically the kind of, what is it that I want students to get out of class knowing? What is it that I want
that
them
knowledge, is that comes from a business mindset? Because it's not something I've really heard explicitly in teaching, and yet I think that I hadn't really considered the term sunk cost or redundant planning, I guess. But that's something that's pretty valid in teaching. Where did you come across that concept?
Well, it's an economics term, where it means that if you spend too much money in something, you don't pull out because you already invested money, and sometimes you keep investing money because you already invested that amount of money. But of course, this term can be used also in other things that you're doing in terms of energy. If you spend energy in a certain project, for example, you don't want to pull out because you already put the time, so you keep working on it until you complete it, even though it might not be a success. So you can see it across multiple areas or fields. For me, it's mostly knowing that this sunk cost, like if I prepared so much, I have to go through everything because I feel, why did I do it? It's a waste. So what I've been trying to do is to really ask myself, what is it that I'm trying to get out of this class? And not stick too much to my kind of, okay, these are all the things, or the slides, for example. If I see there's no need to show the slides, I'm not going to show it. I know what's on the slides. I know, for example, that I can show 2 slides if I think they are a must. And what I'm trying to say is that sometimes and I'm better at doing it, to be honest, in on-site teaching than I am in online teaching. So that's something that I'm trying to work on it.
Well, I think you get the reaction, don't you? You know how people are feeling to what you're saying, whereas just talking to you now, there's that slight delay. So you're not quite, and you can't always see people's faces. We did a bit of online teaching, and sometimes when they didn't have the camera up, I found that difficult because I didn't know if they were sleeping or if they found me bored or Sam, have you heard that sunk cost in terms of education?
We've actually looked into that a little bit in our enrichment program based off, you're probably familiar with Thinking Fast and Slow, Areen, a Daniel Kahneman book, which has got some great ideas in it, and cognitive biases and all that kind of stuff. Do you consciously apply much of that kind of stuff in your work?
I do. I think too much, which is sometimes not that good. But I do think about my biases and what am I doing, and is that decision based on something that could benefit students, or again, is it system 1 or system 2? What is working here? And it's a great book, by the way. But yeah, it's going back to the comment of online. It's harder when I'm on site. I can read the body language of students. I can know what's going on. I can feel the energy. In online teaching, it's harder. I don't know what's happening on the other side. In on-site teaching, I can talk about personal things and get connected one-on-one with students. In online teaching, it's harder to do that. So there are some challenges. But I was talking to my husband, and I was like, I should stop saying I enjoy on-site teaching more than online teaching. I should stop saying that. I should find a way to enjoy online teaching the same way I enjoy on-site teaching, because we live in a new reality and I might need to teach even more online than on-site. So that's it. Like it's the entrepreneurial mindset of, you have a problem, you solve it. You don't complain or say, oh, you know what, I'm going to choose something that is easy, or say, you know, I'm better than this, then I'm not going to work on becoming better at online teaching. So now my what I'm working on before the fall semester is really finding that way to get closer to students, to try to understand what it, you know, try to get to know them better, and what interests them, and how I can build a sense of community even in online teaching, and not only on site. And how can we have a fun classes without, you know, that kind of, I feel students don't know me that much when I'm teaching on you know, online, trust issues, etc. And how can we build that trust, and that I really care about my students, I really care about teaching, and I do it because I love it, and because I want to be good at it, and because I want students to benefit and grow from what we're doing. And I, of course, I don't want to, you know, just do it for the sake of it. I never done anything in my life in terms of jobs just for the sake of it. I've done it because I really like it and I want to be good at it.
Well, we were going to invite you over to Perth to do a bit of Stanford at Scotch, but what you're saying is you'd rather do that remotely?
No, I do, you know, like there's nothing like the one-on-one connection. There's nothing like it. Seriously, it doesn't matter. I mean, this whole world is going digital in a way, but there's nothing like meeting someone, you know, and being close to them and talking to them and joking with them and reading their body language, etc. So there's nothing that can really compensate. But sometimes we are living in a different reality, and the question is, do I just keep saying, you know, this is different, or should I be creative and entrepreneurial and try to find ways to make, you know, online teaching, for example, more enjoyable, more fun for me, for students, and more beneficial as well, more valuable.
Areen, you mentioned, you know, fostering creative thinking and entrepreneurial thinking, and it's in a way that's you know, having to foster maybe an appetite for risk in your students. And you teach a lot of really very able students at Harvard, obviously. But I imagine this is a sweeping generalization, but perhaps they are the kinds of students who are very good at getting the exact right answer at school, and perhaps not necessarily the kinds of students who've fostered a great deal of creative thinking or risk-taking. How do you deal with that with your students? And is that an issue?
Yeah, it is. It is. There's a tension, absolutely. And I think it's a problem across all teaching and the educational system as a whole. I personally do not believe in grades and grading students. I have to do it because I have to do it based on university policies. But I think that there's a problem, at least psychologically, when your goal is not shared by others. And you're trying to, you know, I build the course based on the goal that I want students to grow. That's it. I don't build it based on, I want students to get an A in my course. Like, so how can they get an A in the course? That's not how I build my courses. And so some students, their goal is not growth. Their goal is getting an A. And so any student who comes in and their goal is getting an A and mine is growth, you see some tension going on. It doesn't mean that you cannot have both. You can, but if you are focusing, if your goal is only getting an A, then you're less creative, then you're less entrepreneurial, then you don't take risk because you're focusing on the right answer. And in business, it's the hardest because there's no right answer. There's more critical thinking. There's more, I'm going to push you more. Some students really love it and I appreciate it. Some students love how much I push and how much I challenge them and I question, you know, they work hard and they come up with a list of things and I'm like, why? Where did you come up with this? What about that? And then they're like, I worked so hard on this and now you're questioning everything that I've done. Why did I work so hard on this? And other students, they're like, I worked so hard on this, but I really appreciate your comment and your feedback. And I see it's coming from the right place and I should have thought about it more. So that's where you see, you know, that kind of tension when someone sees their hard work as enough to get kind of the right answer versus my hard work is part of the growth and I appreciate the feedback that I'm getting that enables me to grow more. That actually connects, you know, talking about entrepreneurship, that connects to Carol Dweck's book. She's a Stanford professor, and I'm sure many schools now use this book, Mindset, right? And I teach that in entrepreneurship as well in my entrepreneurship classes and the class that I teach at Stanford. But it's this idea of growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And those who have, based on Carol's perception of it, or the so many experiments that she did, people with fixed mindset, they actually believe, they see the word as smart, not smart, people who are talented versus not talented. They see it as black and white, versus people who have growth mindset are people who do not, they believe that how smart they are can change, and how talented they are can change, and there's nothing that can stop them. And if they fail, they learn from the failure, not by following the same strategy, actually by being somehow creative and by following different strategies and see what's going to happen. They're not worried about hard work. They see hard work as part of being smart, versus someone who has a fixed mindset. They see hard work as, I'm not smart enough, because if I was smart, I would know how to do something without taking too much effort.
And in your experience, is it the same kind of people who are more explicitly motivated by grades, who have a fixed mindset, as opposed to those implicitly motivated?
Yes.
How does the conflict play out? Are you explicit with students that are purely extrinsically motivated and try to coerce them into being more motivated from a better point of view?
I try, but it's not that easy, right? So it's kind of like, I tell students usually, I'm like, I don't care about your grade. It means nothing to me. It says nothing about you. You can fail my class and it doesn't say anything about you. And someone can get an A, it doesn't say anything about them. Because in the end of the day, there are many factors that play in someone's doing an assignment. If someone took a risk and that risk caused them to not get high points based on the criteria that I have, that doesn't mean that, they are less good than someone else. Or someone who has personal, situation at home that prevents them from investing as much time, then that means nothing. They're great. And I say that in class, and I do tell them that from my perspective, what I focus on is your growth. And the way I evaluate my work is by the end of the semester, when I see your work and I see how you shifted, how you came into class, and how the way you speak, the way you present, the way you argue, your recommendations, how it changed. And if I see that change, then for me, that's success.
What do you think needs to change at school then? Because we have this end result, which all of our students aim towards, getting the highest possible mark so they can get into the best course at university.
We have a very crude measure here in Western Australia where they get a 1 score, and that score essentially allows you to get into which course you want to. It's a very different kind of process in the US compared to Australia. Yeah, so
where does the change need to occur to stop that from happening and to stop students being so focused on their extrinsic motivators?
Just take it out. I mean, why do you need to evaluate? Why do we need to evaluate people? I don't get it. Like, are we evaluating them because they need to get a job? Well, they get a job. If they're not good at it, they will be fired. What is, I mean, I don't get it. Like, I don't get the grade. And I was an A student all of, in college, in high school, in school, all the time. I was an A-type student, and an A-type student is a student who doesn't voice their opinion if they know that their opinion is against the opinion of the teacher, because they're afraid not to get an A, right? So I wasn't active in school, even when I saw things that are not right, because I wanted to be the good girl who's getting A in every single subject. Yeah, it got me far based on the system that exists right now, but it's not the right system to exist. So I don't understand that concept of evaluating students. I don't see where it's coming from or what is the benefit of it. In the end of the day, people are going to get to work. If you're not good at it, you'll be fired, full stop. Like, the company will decide if they want to hire you or not. But other than that, I don't see the value of really giving grades to students.
Can I ask, at what point in your educational journey did you make a bit of a shift away from that? I'm just gonna, I'm the straight A student, and was there a shift in your mindset at a certain age where you felt you had more, I guess, freedom, intellectual freedom, and that kind of thing?
I will tell you one thing that happened. I always care about the A, and even now, right? Like with course evaluations and, what is your course evaluation? I would say one thing. Now I don't care as much about course evaluation as I did before. And there are many things that I went through to be able to understand that I can't link my identity to grades and achievements, but to growth. And am I learning something? And who's also evaluating? Why am I waiting for someone outside who doesn't know me as much to evaluate? Like, why am I making the assumption that someone else can evaluate me better than me evaluating myself, based on criteria that I care about, for example? So that's what I'm doing. So just to give you an example for my teaching, what I do, it's not that I don't care about the course evaluation or what students write. I do care a lot about, their feedback and how I can improve all the time, but I don't focus on the point. Like, what is the point out? What is the score? I don't care about that at all. What I say to myself is, what is it that I want? I want students to grow. Did they grow? Did they show that they have more critical thinking? Did they enjoy working with their teams? Did I create a sense of community? All these different criteria, that's what I put. And based on the submissions, based on their contribution in class, engagement, I can see if those have been achieved or not, and what else can I do to improve those. Course evaluation, for example, many of them are based on the emotional state of the student, right? If students get more A's, they're going to give you better course evaluation than if they don't, for example. For me specifically, I think when I did my MBA, here's one thing that I noticed about myself. I did care about getting an A, of course, but the courses that I felt that teachers are waiting for me to judge me if I'm an A-type student or not, those are the courses that I didn't do well in. And I intentionally didn't do well in them. It was a decision. They required a huge amount of work, but I didn't feel that it's because of, they want me to learn, or it's because of my growth. They treated students as, you're a good student, you're not a good student. You're an A student, you're not an A student. And that for me, I'm out of it. Like, I'm not going to invest as much. And also I had to make a decision. So in one semester I had, multiple courses, but one of them was entrepreneurship. And the other courses were very demanding, but the entrepreneurship one, I wanted to become an entrepreneur. So for me, I made a decision that I want to focus on entrepreneurship because that's linked to what I want to do after school. And that's what I did. And I invested less in the other courses because I knew I don't have the capacity to invest the same amount of time in all the courses. So either I get an average and I contribute an average and I learn average amount of knowledge in all of them, or I decide that I want to benefit the most from the course that could help me achieve what I want to do after my school. So that's where, yes, I care about the A, but then there was something else that made me kind of question how much do I need to favor the A versus, what could help me really grow and get to what I want.
Understanding yourself, I imagine, and probably a little bit of maturity, which is not something that all students have at any age. So I guess that's difficult.
Yeah. And so, we're big promoters of this whole idea of interdisciplinary education for motivation, for student motivation, because if they see the kind of real world context in which they're trying to solve a problem and it's meaningful to them, then they will be intrinsically motivated to solve that problem. But there's also a lot of resistance at a high school level that, with strict disciplinarians saying, well, if you kind of enact this kind of curriculum, it's going to kind of dilute the disciplines, and kids just need to know their fundamental physics and their chemistry and their the basic principles of these things.
And this teaching to an exam as well, where we'll get you're prepared so you can get the best mark in this exam. All the course evaluations, this was the best teacher ever. Mind you, 5 years time, all that information is entirely lost, and the people that were successful in that area, or those teachers that maybe didn't get as good an evaluation, did a better job.
How do you see that tension between students having to get sort of bed down certain fundamental skills, and that's why they need to be separated and categorized versus put into play in more real world contexts?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, the whole conversation about education and the education system and how it's going to be it has to be disrupted, or you either reinvent yourself as an educational institution, or someone else is going to come and disrupt what you're doing. And that's because people have less kids, so you have less people that are going to come to schools or colleges, etc. That's a fact. So in that sense, what I would say is let's be entrepreneurial here as well. I mean, I know it's it requires lots of work, right? Advocacy, because it's politics, it's, the funding, it's a lot of factors that play into it. But I do think that, we have to ask the question, why do schools exist? What is it that we're trying to achieve? When I was, in high school, yeah, I did math, I did physics. Do I use physics? No, I don't. Do I use math? No, I don't. I was really good, but I didn't use it. Did I really need them to be successful in my life now? I'm not sure. I think that having certain amount of knowledge is important, but it's not the knowledge. It's the way that we interpret that knowledge that we're learning, is the way that our mind works. It's the skills that we have in terms of communication, etc., that schools don't talk about, right? Like no one teaches you communicate. When I was in high school, no one taught me communication. They taught me, I was in the science, the best class learning science. So it was mostly learning about all the science topics and languages and etc., but none of the communication art. I didn't study art. None of that was part of my my learning experience. But I think it's more, we're human beings, and focusing on knowledge and not the fact that we are human beings, that we have to excel at multiple skills, creating community, caring about others, showing empathy. All these things are so important, and they're much more important than me being the best in my class in math, for example. So I would say, you can have a moderate amount of, okay, they need to know about math, but maybe ask yourself, how much do they really need to know about math, and why? What is the goal behind what we are teaching students? But not forgetting the soft skills that students have to have, and the idea behind empathy, and being empathetic to other students in class, and knowing how to create friendships, because that's life in the end of the day.
We've certainly moved that way over the last couple of years with that. We call them approaches to learning, and they're the soft skills. Everything you're talking about there: communication, problem solving, creativity, empathy. It's been a little bit of a journey, and I think that maybe people with more of a fixed mindset don't see them as being valuable. So no, we'll just do it exactly the same way we always have for the last 100 years. But it is getting there. I think maybe we just need to get a bit more of an emphasis on it. But we're battling systems that are very entrenched in our entire society. It's kind of feels a little bit difficult.
And I also think we need to be careful, because our school is definitely moving towards an emphasis on all of the skills you're talking about. We've got this new initiative called the cognitive curriculum, which is an emphasis on skills-based learning. But at the same time, there's sort of this increasing need to quantify everything as well. So there's sort of well-being, software packages now that you can buy that surveys students and then quantifies the results of their well-being, and so I think we have to be careful, as you say, when we measure these things, like how we measure them, how we evaluate them, because when you're evaluating skills, you have to be careful you don't just then give someone an A for empathy. I don't know what do you think about that?
It goes back to my comment before, which is we don't need to assess every single student. I mean, we are human beings too, and as much I create my criteria of how I want a rubric, and it's so detailed, so I make sure that I'm more objective when I grade students. But in the end of the day, we are human beings, and how do you assess really 100%? How do you assess students? It's not a math problem that you're solving. So I don't know, this whole assessment thing, it creates the link between our self-esteem with how others perceive us, and this is very dangerous to humanity in general.
How many likes I get on Instagram is a good example.
What?
How many likes I get on Instagram.
Exactly. How many likes do I get? How many shares? Do people like me or don't like me? So that constant, and I see it even more now in high schools than when I was in high schools, sending the grades or having parents seeing the grades before students coming home, or, all kinds of things that I'm kind of, why do you need to assess everything? That doesn't mean that you're doing a good job if you keep assessing people. And I see the opposite too. Students, sometimes they want the assessment the whole time. How am I doing? How am I doing? Well, you're concentrating too much by how you're doing instead of saying, how can I improve? Like the question is not how can I improve? It's more, how do you see me? Am I good? And then some students get mad because they want to hear positive things. They don't want to hear negative things. And I feel that there has to be that kind of, let's back off on that, too much assessment and more on the growth part. And it's not going to be easy because everyone else is focusing on the external part of how everyone is being assessed. But I think if you're teaching soft skills, it's not something that maybe ask students to talk about if they feel that they have improved those skills or not, versus you assessing their work and pushing back against schools. I mean, the world would not change unless people push back. So I know that it's not easy. You know, I have the same when you have policies that you have to follow, etc. But sometimes we can do some changes that would make a difference.
Can you expand on that? I mean, you're preaching to the converted here, but assume you were in our position in a system that you have to battle. What are some of the things you would do as a secondary teacher in Western Australia?
Well, I don't know the system too well, but I think that, you know, how many times are you assessing students? If you are doing 10 exams, why do you need to do 10 exams? Like, why don't you just do activities that they learn about things without assessing them too many times, right? Why don't the feedback be more about how they can be better, how they can improve on certain things, and less about here's your grade or here's what you got in terms of the exam? So maybe the amount of assessment, making that, you know, less than more, that could be helpful, and not having students being anxious about, you know, how they are being assessed by the teacher. Maybe being less rigid when it comes to soft skills, right? It's not math, it's not physics. So if it's soft skills and you're assessing a student, then maybe you shouldn't be as rigid in how you assess them. Maybe the criteria can be more on the improvement versus the performance, right? That's something that you can do, in my opinion.
This has been so valuable for us. So we're so appreciative that you've given up your time. But before you go, we've got a couple of quick fire questions. So what would you say distracts you most?
Social media. That's why I deleted all the apps from my phone. Yeah.
Pretty common one. Most of our guests have said something similar. If you're on a deserted island, what would be the one album that you would take with you?
So musical, right?
Music, yep.
I would take, I don't know if you're familiar with the Algerian singer. Her name is Souad Massi.
We're not, but
beautiful voice, amazing. I would take her album called Omnia.
Fantastic.
It's a beautiful, yeah.
We'll look that one up.
Yeah.
Okay, what book most transformed your understanding of the world, or had the biggest impact on you?
I think there are multiple books, but I would talk about three that are linked to each other. I talked about one of them, which is Mindset, because it made me realize many things about me being a teacher and what it means. And, you know, am I creating a culture that is focused on growth, or am I just, you know, creating a culture that is assisting students, etc.? That is one that has changed. And also looking internally. I know that I'm more of a growth mindset, but it's more making me aware where in certain areas I am and I have a fixed mindset. The other two books that I think have been very valuable to me are The Power of Now and New Earth. And those two books, Eckhart Tolle, are written by the same writer. And I, you know, the main idea behind them is really being in the present moment. I think they're, you know, relating to your question about distractions, we live in a world that there's so many distractions, so many stimulus, that we are forgetting to just enjoy the present moment, and not, you know, not worry too much about, you know, what's going to happen after, or what happened before. And he talked about, you know, how we as human beings, we hold a pain buddy, you know, with childhood trauma or whatever events that we went through growing up, and we carry them with us. And then, you know, whenever there's an incident that rubs into those, you know, pain buddy, our mind works in a way that grows it, and it becomes, you know, even more painful. And then how in our world we're so anxious about the future, what's going to happen after, where am I going to get at, right? And he's talking about the fact that, you know, the truth is that right now everything is perfect. Right now you are complete. There's nothing missing in your life. And so focus on that in every single moment of your life you are actually complete. There's nothing missing. There's no reason to worry, because nothing in this current moment is really causing you to worry. It's basically your mind and your thinking that is causing you all that worry. I love this book too because, I talk about I'm being an A student, etc. And one of the things that I've discovered is that my mom was a person who wanted me to get an A. We in my school, it was mostly out of it's points, so it's out of 100. And if I would go home and get 99, my mom would say, "Why not 100?" That is her answer. And if I get 100, guess what's her answer? What her question is?
Make sure you do that again next time.
No, she's like, how many others got 100?
Oh.
And that just makes you feel you are never good enough. No matter what, like I got the 100, I got the highest points possible. And even though I did, unless I'm the only one, it seems, in class who got it, then I'm not special enough, I'm not good enough. And in a way, it helped me achieve what I've achieved, right? I'm teaching at Harvard, etc. I've been always TV host at a young age. So I've achieved a lot in my life, but one of the things that I discovered is that my self-esteem is linked to my achievements. And that was a disaster for me when I discovered that link between both of them. And so those two books and others that I've read and a journey that I went through, looking internally and why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. I think a great part of it is understanding that you are complete. There's nothing missing. And yes, it's amazing to have goals in life. And it's amazing to be ambitious, and it's amazing to try to achieve your goals, but whether you achieve them or not, you're complete at it every single moment of your life, and you better enjoy the journey because you're not going to get a second chance.
Well, that's a really, really powerful way to finish the interview. So, Areen, thank you so much for being on the Range Project.
Hopefully we can invite you out here sometime when travel restrictions allow.
I would love to visit.
Awesome.
So I hope you take it through and yes, you invite me and then I come and I get to meet your students again. And it's amazing the work that you're doing. It's just, super amazing what you're doing. I would say focus on entrepreneurship because it's about solving problems and it does connect all the disciplinaries together when students work on solving problems.
Great.
And we have a lot of problems in this work.
We sure do. Thank you very much, Areen.
Thanks, Areen.
All right, we'll let you go.
Bye.